get to where you are today in your career? Like, how did it all start? And then how did you find yourself really involved in diversity and inclusion?
So it's an interesting story. I would never have imagined that I'd be where I am today. I studied modern European history at university. I was desperate to be a journalist. I wanted to be a journalist, a foreign correspondent, and studied Arabic at SOAS, School of Oriental and African Studies in London. Did a certificate in for a year. And that got me into a role at Middle East broadcasting. And I basically just got this job in TV, and I was editing programs in Arabic as a production assistant. So that was really diverse and quite unusual. Certainly not what I expected to be doing, but it was really fun, it gave me lots of opportunity. And then through that, I managed to get some other roles in TV. I became production manager, and I moved up to unit manager and then a production exec, and was working on big sort of reality shows and light entertainment shows on Channel 4, ITV, etc. So that was really interesting, one half of my career. And then I got made redundant while I was pregnant. And actually I just had my second daughter. I got made redundant, but I had been travelling into London. I'd moved out of London. And I was looking around for a more local job, but wanted to use my transferable skills. So we all have transferable skills, but mine was very much organising, budgeting, scheduling, because that's what I did, but for TV shows. Yeah. So I actually applied for a project manager role, and I hadn't had any experience in corporates or telecoms, but there was a local company, 3, near where I worked. So I applied for them. One of my friends, her husband worked there, and suggested I apply for this project management role. So I do think that person who interviewed me took a little bit of a risk on me. Yeah. Absolutely no telecoms experience. I'd never worked in a corporate of that sort of form, and I hadn't worked in IT, but I had done through TV. We'd done a lot of work. For example, nearly every TV show then had a website to accompany it. So I'd done a lot of work on websites, etc. But I think it's always worth thinking that someone's going to take a punt on you, and that is really important in anyone's career. I think just someone something in you that they think that you've got that potential or that capability, and I think that's what they saw in me. So I went and worked as a project manager at UK, and I'll be honest, I didn't think I'd last 3 months. I didn't know what was going on. I remember being in meetings going, I have no idea what anyone's talking about. Get me out on a set again. Get me. Yeah. It's so much easier. Yeah. So I had to learn a whole load of lingo, lots of acronyms in telecoms, or anyone in IT will know that there's loads of acronyms. A massive learning journey. And I was in my 30s as well, so it was a complete and utter career change, with 2 young children. And it was a real challenge. It was something I think I would last. So I say that now. I've now been there 10 years.
10 years, so, goodness.
Yeah. So and for 8 of those years I was part-time. I've had some great, really supportive managers. So I went and applied to be part-time, and I've been promoted 4 times across. So project manager, lead project manager, program manager, and now where I am now is head of planning and delivery for the digital development team. Wow. So after everything, delivering on the website, the 3 app and 3 store.
Wow, that's amazing. See, it goes to show perseverance.
It doesn't matter. You don't always know where you're going to end up. My 20-year-old self would never have imagined that I'd be working. I would call myself a woman in tech, which is kind of a sort of a banner that I use quite a lot, because people don't always think that if you're not techie, are you a woman in tech? And I absolutely believe that you are. Anyone who works for a tech company has that, can be a woman in tech. Sorry, you mentioned diversity and inclusion. Yeah. So I didn't quite finish your question. So then I suppose my journey in that area is that obviously I came to telecoms, and when I'd worked in TV, I would say it was a lot more diverse. There were a lot more women, a lot more people, a lot of people from the LGBTQ community. So
amazing.
I'd always worked really in a great culture, really open, diverse culture. So coming to telecoms and coming to IT, I definitely noticed the lack of women, most specifically. But also just sort of perhaps lack of real open culture and belonging, that you can just be who you are. I think in a lot of tech companies, you come in and you go in and you do your job. I did recognise that perhaps that open culture and that inclusive culture maybe wasn't quite there.
It was lacking a little bit.
It was lacking a little bit. So I wanted to do something about that. And to do, if I see a gap, I sort of jump into it and think, what can I do? And so I joined the Women in Tech group, which was a fledgling at that time. Actually, it started up by one of my friends and colleagues, and she asked me to get involved. I got involved. I was a big supporter, and when she left the company, she asked me to take it on as sort of the natural leader. So I took on the Women in Tech group at the same time as I formed my own company, STEM Connects, and at the same and then I sort of became more of my mission, I would say. That's when it really became my mission to drive change, to drive more females and minorities in STEM careers.
How did you find when you first started then, getting it off the ground and people actually responding to it and wanting to join? Because it's growing, yes, but there is still a stigma attached to it. So how did you find when you first started it?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question. So when I first started getting involved, I remember sort of when I made the decision to take on the Women in Tech group, I sort of thought, like, you know what, there's certain things that I want to try and achieve. So first of all, I went straight to our CIO and I asked them to be the sponsor for the Women in Tech. And that was a man, but I thought politically that was an important thing to have an exec sponsor. So one of the first things I did. I also set up a committee within the Women in Tech group. So we got I had 7 other people, women, joined me, and so it wasn't all about me, which was important. So that's the second thing I did. And then the third thing we did was we wrote a vision document and we put some data behind it. So we said, like, this is the data. There's, I don't think it's changed a huge amount, but, around the 17% of women in tech. I got the data from within 3 of how many actual women are in the different departments. And we put that in and then said, then this is what we want to achieve. So with anything that you want to achieve, you want to put a little bit of a business case behind it, and data is the way of doing that. So this is where we are, this is the gap, and this is what we want to achieve, and then this is how we're going to achieve it. The really important piece of advice I would give to anyone creating or forming any sort of employee network, as well as the exec sponsor, as well as the committee, because you need help, is really making sure that your agenda is aligned with the business or the company people agenda as well. So that's really important, because you don't want to be working at loggerheads with them. You want to be working and demonstrating to the company that everything you're doing is of benefit. So it's good for your brand, it's good for your bottom line, it's good for future customers, and it's just really good for the internal employee network as well. So, the employee NPS, eNPS, as well as the outside NPS as well. So it's really, it's a win-win situation as I see it. If you demonstrate diversity and you support the people who are trying to drive change, then it's a really easy win for the company. Support the people who are trying to do it, get behind them, put some budget behind them as well. so that you can get speakers in, you can build momentum, and the things that we do is we do lunch and learns.
Okay.
So, ask different women, mainly women across the business, to do lunch and learns. They do role models, so they role model and they say this is how, basically just share their career story.
Yeah.
Like I'm doing now. So hopefully for someone it will resonate. For someone it'll be like, oh, I was there, or oh, that's what I wanted to achieve, or they might give some great tips, whether that be mentorship or sponsorship or networking, whatever their tips are, but they'll share tips. So that's one way that we do a lot of things, and we have those monthly.
Mm-hmm.
We have a Teams group so that there's always sort of articles shared and there's engagement in the group.
Yeah.
And then we've also created a business volunteer program as well, and this is very much the Women in Tech group.
Yeah.
So, we align with companies and with schools and learning programs and anything around corporate social responsibility. Go into schools, career fairs, mock interviews, and we will go into those schools virtually at the moment, obviously, to either pretend to do an interview with people so that students get an understanding of what it is to have interviews, give them some insight into different roles, and we'll go to career fairs as well and sort of talk to people. So doing that again for about 2 years now, and that was very much a program that I was fundamental in setting up.
So on the subject of you saying how you got the CIO, who was a male, to invest into it as well, I suppose broadly speaking then, how have you found in your experience if there's been any barriers or challenges that you face which within your career that at the moment you could argue is still a very male dominated industry? Like how have you found it as you've gone and made your way up to where you are now?
So that's interesting. I don't see personally a lot of barriers for me. I have managed to get promoted whilst being part-time, and I think that's because, so people say, oh, I'm really lucky, I had a really good manager. I try and change that around and take out the word lucky. So I think you need to really think about who you want to work for, and that could be company as well as manager. I have always sought out some really massively inspiring managers, and I would say barring one or two, and actually bad managers can be good as well, because then you can learn how but I'm not going to say the word lucky, I have actively sought and found really, really inspiring mentor managers, and I think that's incredibly important. So therefore the barriers can be managers who don't support you, managers who don't believe in you and therefore may not support you or pay you less, and that can go towards the gender or the ethnicity pay gap. And also you need that support and that visibility. And so challenges would be if you don't surround yourself, or you're not surrounded by people who have your back, then I would recommend that you move out of that area, whether that be a company or a team. So always try and find yourself in places where you are respected, you're listened to, you're visible, and you're not talked over, which is an absolute classic. But also not only for women, but it's also for all minorities. I'm quite involved in a new network at 3 that again I sort of helped to set up, coming out of Black Lives Matters. In Tech Group, I started a conversation and said, let's talk about racism. I put it out there, let's talk about racism, let's not pretend and hide under about this. And out of that discussion, we had a lot of people join, and out of that we formed a new committee, a new employee group called, we just put it BAME and Allies, Black, Asian, Minority, Ethnic, just because we wanted it to, this is what it says on the tin. We may change the name at a later stage. There's a lot of discussion around gender and language and, language as a whole around diversity and inclusion. But sometimes at the starting point, just call it what it is, and not get too caught up in the language, and then move forward from that.
Yeah.
In Allies Network, and some of the challenges are very, very similar. The more I hear about the challenges, I think whatever minority you're in, and whether that's women, or whether that's your ethnicity or disability, or your sexual preference, where you're from, the barriers seem to be the same. The McKinsey report and a lot of other data has demonstrated that diverse workforces definitely outperform less diverse workforces. I think there's even something that says if you have one woman on your board, your EBIT increases by a certain amount. If you have two, then it's even more. Same with any level of diversity. The point being is that nowadays, any company that isn't looking at diversity is not representing their customers. They're not representing what they're selling. So it's all about brand. So let's not pretend here. It is about your bottom line, and therefore every diversity and inclusion initiative is only going to be of benefit. And it's going to be of benefit for a number of reasons. First of all, yes, it's all very well bringing in people into your company, but if you don't have the culture that will retain them, then you're going to lose them again very quickly. Then you've got higher turnaround. Recruitment's very expensive. So really it's in every company's interest to get fantastic talent and to keep them. And you only get fantastic talent if you've got a really good culture. And that culture is around inclusive culture, inclusive management, great recruitment, but also flexible working, trust, being empowered. All those things just bring out the best of people. So ensuring that the culture allows people to be themselves. So for example, a company might say, I want to bring in a whole load of people who are disabled or blind. Well, that's all very well before you employ them, that you have the tools for them, that you talk to your teams and you give them training so that they will be inclusive, and so these people aren't going to come in. But anyone, no one wants to start in a business, in a company, and be excluded, usually through fear, because people don't understand. And if people haven't experienced yourself, then you don't understand. It's not necessarily their fault, but it is the responsibility of a company to train people, to do unconscious bias training, to do white privilege training, to do inclusive management training, anything that is required. So all of that is going to not only increase your, but if you do it well, then you really, really high ENPS scores, which I've already explained is employee net promoter score. And also it will also look good for your brand. You'll get good reviews on Glassdoor and all of these sort of things. And you will then in turn bring better talent in, and you'll get those best people because they'll want to work for you. And not only that, but you'll also be doing the insight, the data, you'll be looking at your customers, and your customers will want to buy from you because you're a good company. And if COVID has taught us anything, it's that people want companies who care about people.
100%, yeah, definitely.
Who care about the environment and treat their customers and their people well. And that's what people want now. If you're a company and you're not doing that, you will be left behind. And people do remember. It's not something that, it'll die down. It's like, well, this year, it's not died down. We all thought it'd be 2 weeks and it's nearly a year. So I don't know if it will. People will remember these things. And if anything, I think it's taught us that, we've changed the way our attitudes on things, where we want to shop, who we want to give our money to. Companies that the first thing, the budgets they cut are the people budgets, diversity budgets, training budgets. Those are the first things that go. Now, the companies haven't done that and have done the opposite and actually represented wellness and made sure that is at the forefront. Again, their employees will remember that, and they will recognise that. Yeah, definitely. Would you say that, we've kind of touched on it, but
would you say there are any barriers that businesses might face when they're looking at their diversity and inclusion at the moment, whether they have some or nothing at all, and think, are there barriers and challenges that they're going to face when implementing their initiatives or their program, whatever? What would you say is like the hardest thing that they might come across, if there is anything that's going to be hard?
So there are definite challenges. So mindset is a big one. Mindset and behaviours. There are a lot of people who genuinely don't think that there's a problem, or don't think that they're a problem. And there is also a cost. That's
normally the problem, isn't it?
That's normally the problem. Yes, thank you for saying that. So the people who don't think there is a problem are usually the ones who are part of the problem.
Yeah.
I think Black Lives Matter really brought things to a head when they said it's not enough to be not racist. You have to be anti-racist.
Yeah.
It's not enough to be silent. So people who are silent are being held to account, saying you can't be silent on this. This is not something that you can not have an opinion on. You are racist or you're not racist. You are bigot or you're not a bigot. You are misogynist or you're not. You have to be an ally. Not only is it okay to it's not okay just to be silent, but you have to be an active ally, and that's what we're really trying to drive. But it's really hard. It's not easy. Uncomfortable. And I think, there are people who are very much welcoming this and are comfortable being uncomfortable. But it's really hard to have a mirror in front of your face and saying, have you really considered that some of the language that you use, the points of view that maybe your parents or that you have as well are maybe they're not really acceptable now. We've got kids calling us out on this thing, which is fantastic.
Amazing.
Not an easy thing, and it's really not. I'm still learning. I'm not in any way an expert, and anyway I get things wrong, but I'm willing to get things wrong and then be called up on it, and then I will apologise and I'll say thank you, and I have learned from that. And that's the power of actually learning and trying to be a little bit humble and going, I don't know and I got that wrong. I'm really sorry. Educate me. But I think it's about trying, and this is why growth mindset is so important. It's people who are just willing to open their points of view, listen to other people, and it's about tolerance as well. Actually, you don't necessarily agree; you have to be tolerant. And I think that's a big barrier.
It's also like learning to, as you say, like if you get something wrong, that's fine. It's better to get it wrong than not say anything at all. And if you don't know things, then it's important to educate yourself on them, by doing the smallest of thing of buying a book and reading about it from someone who's been through it, or articles or blogs, or, there are some really great documentaries and programs that are out since the whole Black Lives Matter movement has come about. And not only that, but that's been like at the forefront. I think it's definitely important that people try to say that they've tried, and that's something trying, should I say. Tried
and trying. I think just be open to things, be willing to listen and willing to try and understand things that maybe you haven't needed to before is really important, and especially for those of us who are white and who have privilege, and able-bodied and all of that sort of thing. It is our job, not other people's jobs. It's our job to educate ourselves. Definitely go and ask. I mean, the biggest compliment you can give someone is just say to one of your colleagues or someone, or a direct report, or someone that you've maybe went to school with, and just say, tell me about your experience, please. I'm really, really interested in hearing what you have experienced. And I can promise you, guarantee you, that your eyes will be opened, because they will tell you stuff that they have never told you before. Never realised before. So it's about educating yourself and asking and being inquisitive, being curious, and that's what it's all about. Is women, being in tech is being inquisitive. Find out, research, understand, and learn from it.
So how do you think businesses and communities can better support women in tech?
So I think to answer one point of your last question as well, is it's around cost. So, you know, put your money where your mouth is, sort of type thing. So I think any business, it needs to come from the top. Employees will not buy into it unless it comes from the top. So it's got to be represented, it's got to be seen and visible from the very top. How do we do? Boards need to get more diverse, and there's lots of different ways that boards can get more diverse.
100%, yeah.
We're not just talking about tokenism, we're talking about, what about reverse mentoring? Every single board member could maybe sponsor or mentor someone from a Black or ethnic minority, or someone with one of the protected characteristics, and sponsor someone and do reverse mentoring, so that every board member learns something from someone much younger than them, from someone with a different point of view from them. That will make them better. That will make it will make them more aware of their customer base, and it will open their minds to things that they don't currently know about now.
Definitely, yeah.
There's also apprenticeship boards. So again, getting an apprentice on the board. So you educate and you build someone up, and that, whether that's the woman or again, someone from a minority group, that's another really good way of doing it. And then bringing in and having resource that it is their job and they will hold you accountable. So whether that's a diversity and inclusion or a diversity and equality officer, maybe a steering committee, look at the policies, look at the way that you recruit, look at your third parties and the agencies you use. Is the marketing agency that you use doing, are you showing a diverse representation on all of your marketing material? On your branding, on your adverts, it needs to be part of everything that we live and breathe. And if you recognize that your team is very samey, then take that responsibility and bring someone into that team who will help educate you and actually will challenge you. Diverse teams will challenge each other. They will brainstorm, they will get things up, they will be more innovative, and then they'll produce better products. Yeah,
it's kind of like what you said earlier about, you know, kind of you can't be silent anymore when it comes to racism, for example, and that's the same in a business. When you can notice and you can see that your business is your teams and whatever are samey, that you can't just sort of sit back and quiet and think, oh well, it's not my responsibility. It's like, as you say, ownership. You need to take ownership of, no, maybe this is partly my responsibility because I'm also in this team as well and I want to see change. And that's how you're going to get change if no one else is speaking up and saying it. So you are the director and you're also a mentor of STEM Connects. How important is mentoring as an initiative to getting more women involved within the tech space, would you say?
Absolutely. So I think mentoring and networking are the two fundamental things that every woman can do more of. And do better. Again, I don't like to generalize, but generically, are not as good at shouting about their achievements and their successes as other people. They're not as good. We're quite self-deprecating as well. There's the imposter syndrome, the monkey on the shoulder, whatever it is. Again, you know, that little sort of person on your shoulder, which is probably just yourself, saying, you know, you're not good enough, or whatever it is, or why did you get that job, or, you know, who do you think you are? Men do get that as well, but it is 70% of women suffer and admit to suffering from imposter syndrome. So mentoring is really important because it comes back to role modeling, as I've mentioned before. If you can see someone and you can have a role model that looks like you, that sounds like you, that has a background like you, then you will see someone that you can be like. So it inspires you. Now you could see, I have spoken to a number of people who've said they'll go into a company and they'll see a whole whiteboard and they will say, you know what, that's my job. I want to get on that board and I will prove it. Now there are definitely people who are challenged, but a lot of people aren't. They see challenges and they see obstacles. So what we need to do is we need to show role models. We need to be inspired, and we need to do, and we can do that by being mentored. So if got a mentor, and there's lots of different mentoring programs out there. Some of them are within companies, some externally. There's a fantastic app called Pajigo app that I'm a mentor for, as well as within obviously STEM Connects, which is the network that I run for minorities in STEM. And it's really just about being there. And I think the other thing about women is that we are all willing to give back as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Help. Generally, most people want to help others. So if someone comes to you, don't ever be scared of asking someone to mentor you. Yes, they may be really busy, and maybe they mentor loads of people, and maybe you think that they're above you, but they were in your position one time.
Yeah.
And usually they remember that. Now, if they're not willing to mentor you at first, then you go back and you say, well, what about just once a year? Let me just have a conversation with you.
Yeah.
And then, you know, that's an in, and everyone's got time for one conversation. You know, it is more. I tend to meet with my mentors about once a month. It is literally just a check-in. And also I'm very thankful for the mentors that I've had in my career. So I want to give that back. So I think mentoring is absolutely key, and networking as well. Networking, meeting people, connecting with people, like-minded people. And you small businesses, or whether it's just, you know, you work in a corporate, maybe you don't have that support network in your team. If you either mentor, but also you network, then you will find a support system elsewhere. So just because you don't have it in your team doesn't mean that you can't get that elsewhere. So networking is all about, and in whether that's a female only network or beyond, but you need a network, you need a support system. Everyone does.
Yeah, definitely. What would you say then are maybe some of the common questions that you are asked as a mentor that you've seen throughout the years, from younger females who are maybe starting out in tech or in their career? What are the most common questions they ask you?
So quite often it's about confidence. So I've got a recent one where someone said, well, I've just got this job, but now I'm really worried because I don't think I can do it. They won't think I'm good enough. So that, you know, you've got the job, so you deserve the job. So you for that job. So why do you think that you don't have the confidence? Because they do. They think the job. So that's a really interesting one, and that's just around mindset and just sort of what's the word when you're sort of reformatting it in your head, and just saying you start looking at facts. So what I do is I say, right, well, let's look at the facts, and then you bring out the facts. And then, why do you think you're not good at the job? Well, so no, but that's not a fact, that's a thought. So we get down to the facts, we work through the facts, through the positives, and then they go and we play that back to them, and then they go, okay, I do deserve to get the job. I will be really good. So that's a big one. I'll be honest though, a lot of the young people that I speak to, I'm genuinely blown away by. You know, anyone who says that the younger generation are lazy or don't care or think that, you know, everything should come to them, I disagree with that. Everyone that I have come across works really, really hard, is massively passionate about the environment, about people. They care and they want to do good. I think that gives me hope. And I think, you know, we have done a disjustice to the environment, to the planet, and I hope to God that people like children and beyond will be able to do some good that will stop that going downwards. So actually, I'm always blown away by the amount of confidence that a lot of young people I talk to. I wish I had that confidence when I was younger. Maybe I did, but in a different way. Yeah,
you just don't know it because obviously I don't know, you're in that mindset, so you don't really notice it yourself, I suppose. But yeah, no, totally. When people say like, oh, young people, you know, they've got it so easy and stuff, I'm like, actually, I think they have it so much harder. I mean,
we've got social media to have to deal with as well. As a child, I would not want to grow up with those. That constant visibility and that constant attention. It's massively wearing on the mental health, and therefore I think our kids are going to be more resilient than we are.
100%.
It goes either way, of course, but yeah, so I think other questions that people ask me, so again, it's usually about confidence. It's just about what qualifications they need to get.
Yeah,
is another big question. How do they, CVs and interview techniques are always really interesting, and I suppose just trying influencing. How do you influence people? But yeah, those are sort of the main things that we cover.
Cool.
In most of the conversations I have.
Yeah, must be comforting for them though to hear it from someone who's been there doing it and more as well, setting up your own business as well to help support them. So I imagine it's very helpful. What is the best piece of advice that you have been given throughout your career that has really stuck with you and that you think has really helped you along the way?
So I think just be yourself. And it sounds fairly obvious, but just be yourself.
Yeah.
Try and understand from someone else's point of view, but actually at the end of the day, just be true to yourself.
Yeah.
The best piece of advice that I give, and I try and give to my kids, and I try and give to all the people that I go and speak to at schools, is just do what you love. Because if you follow what you love, I followed history, then I followed journalism, then TV, and then I got into this, this new world of telecoms and IT that I never imagined that I would do it. But you know what? I love the people and I love working with people. So that's what I do, and I like developing people. I get a lot of pleasure out of seeing someone get promoted or seeing a new job. That's what I get pleasure out. So do what you love and worry less about, you have to have this career and this is what you need to do because of the future. I think I've already demonstrated that, squiggly careers are everywhere now.
Yeah.
It's not just one route. And you can go from one thing to another. Transferable skills are really important. But if you just do something that you're really passionate about, then it feels less like work as well.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we work, 90% of the time of our lives. We need to enjoy it and make sure that we're happy in it. So, and I think, unfortunately, I think there's a lot of people out there that aren't, which is sad, really, because it doesn't have to be like that. And I think it's the fear that people have sometimes of, but I can't change because if I change roles, then it would look really bad. And as you say, it's like, no, it's transferable skills. You can jump from something that's completely, you could be an actor and then train to be a data scientist if you really wanted. Who says you can't? As long as you do what you need to do for it, then nothing stops you.
I had a lady in STEM Connects recently, actually, who did my careers returning program. I did a program where I helped people, they looked at their values, we looked at their CV, we did interview skills, and we did some confidence skills as well. And she was like, I really didn't know whether I wanted to be a project manager or a business analyst, and I was really struggling. And then she just came back to me today and she said, I've just signed up to do a cybersecurity course. That's why I couldn't make up my mind. And it was like, exactly, you couldn't make up your mind because it wasn't right for you. So now she's found something that she is right for her. She's and she's like, and she'll fly, because that, if you can't make up your mind about something, it probably means it's not right.
Yeah.
Go, actually, there's my bit of advice. Go with your gut. I think we all know what we really want. It's articulating that and not being scared to say it out loud. Say it out loud to yourself and say it out loud to someone in your network, and whether that's a mentor or someone who's in your network, and that is what networks and mentors are for. Definitely. To help your way through the clouds. You've
had a really cool career. I mean,
thank you.
That's
very long and very, I call it a career of two halves, which it very much is actually. I would never have imagined my 20-year-old self would be here, but it is interesting, and it's been a journey, and I think you just have to follow what's right. Find your way.
It goes to show that I think I know it's cliche, but they say, the only person that's in your way is yourself, of what you want to do and where you want to get to. There might be a few barriers here and there, whether that's of a situation or a person, but ultimately it's yourself who is going to determine what you do in your life, career-wise and personal life. So and for that I would say find a coach.
a mentor may not always be able to do enough. So if you either have the money or you can find someone who will coach you, that is the other thing that I would definitely recommend. And it is worth the money. There's a lot of coaches out there. There's a lot of women especially who have gone through their career. They're in their 40s, 50s. They have got so much experience and they are fed up with, not getting to the top or not having the work-life balance that they want. And they're retraining as coaches, and there is so much out there. There is so much potential. And there's people out there who can help any one of us. So podcasts, network, get a mentor, get a coach, and just open your mind and do something that you're passionate about.